Next on Max TV, we take a look at AGBEKO versus PEREZ, and then we take a look at Galata Atomic, and we have news and notes. Coming up on the next round. And welcome to the next round, brought to you by Everlast, Gabriel Montoya, Steve Kim from the Auxiliary Press Box here in LA. A big show. Let's go to round number one. It's showtime from the TI, the hotel, not the jailed rapper. Your main event of the night for the IBF Bantamweight title, Joseph AGBEKO takes on Yanni PEREZ. And for the WBC Interim Lightweight title, Antonio DeMarco takes on Jose Alfaro. Gabe, I think we have a hell of a main event here. We're talking about King Kong AGBEKO that has entrenched himself as one of the world's elite bantamweights. And I think Yanni PEREZ is a legitimate number one. This is no miss mandatory. Yeah. Yanni PEREZ is a big, strong guy coming off a thrilling victory in Johannesburg against Silence Mabuza.
Yeah, this is going to be all the way down to the wire. I mean, I think AGBEKO is not a guy that has the kind of punch that's going to get Yanni PEREZ out of there early. I mean, both these guys are more volume punchers. I think, AGBEKO is more of kind of a tricky guy. He's more of a boxing guy. Kind of an awkward, almost reminds me of like the Professor, you know, back in the day. And Yanni PEREZ is a guy, he's high volume, he's going to come to fight. And unlike Victor Darchinyan, he's, who AGBEKO took out in his last fight, he's a natural bantamweight. He's a big guy at 5'6". He's got about 64.5-inch reach, so the reach differential is not much. And he's going to be coming forward all night long. This is going to be all action.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, Victor Darchinyan, I thought, reverted to pre-Donaire, really loading up and lunging with that left hand, and really became a one-arm bandit. The one thing about Yanni PEREZ, he is a two-dimensional puncher. There's a left and a right hand, and there's going to be high volume, and you touched on this. While Victor Darchinyan came in at about 130, really a natural 15, 12-pounder. It did not look like a natural bantamweight. I thought the natural strength, that went to King Kong AGBEKO. But Yanni PEREZ is a big, strong, raw-boned bantamweight. And I think natural strength is going to be a big, big factor here. Yanni PEREZ is going to battle for all 12 rounds.
And this is the thing, that while Donaire, or Darchinyan rather, loaded up with every punch and tried to just, land to that left that would get AGBEKO out of there, PEREZ is just going to keep throwing a lot of punches. He's just going to, go with the left, hit you with the right. He's going to keep moving forward all night. And so it's going to be on AGBEKO to kind of keep moving, kind of box from the outside and pick his spots, maybe go to the body and wear him down a little bit. And so it's going to make for a much better fight. But I think that style is possibly going to tire out AGBEKO. It's going to come down to the 12th round.
Joseph AGBEKO is very interesting. Most of the fighters from Accra, Ghana, except the guy you mentioned, the Professor Azuma Nelson, a lot of the Africans, they don't use a lot of head movement. They use kind of that shell defense, and they're able to absorb a lot of punches with good, strong, steel-like chins. AGBEKO is a little bit of the anomaly, though. He does have the radar. He slips punches very well. Head movement is outstanding, and he does throw a lot of punches. This is what I love about this fight. You have two guys whose styles aren't completely similar, but they do have one thing in common. The leather flies. They let it go, Gabe.
Oh, they really do. And I think that's one of his weaknesses, though, AGBEKO, is that he slips punches. Usually you want to use a mixture of different types of defense. You want to block, maybe catch and shoot, catch and counter, and then you want to slip punches too. And AGBEKO is really big on slipping, but his hands are usually down when he does it. And with a high volume guy like PEREZ, that could be really dangerous because maybe the first two miss, but 3 and 4 are going to get through.
I'm going to say this right now. King Kong AGBEKO is a guy that's one of the hottest fighters in the division. I say right now, yes, folks. Waiter, yes, I want the upset special. I am going with Yanni PEREZ, funny spelling of his first name and all, to win the title. I think we're going to have a new IBF Bantamweight title list.
I'm going to go the other way. I like, where AGBEKO's been going. He's on a slowly building momentum. I thought it was a big win against Darchinyan, although it was against a guy moving up in weight whose style was a little bit tailor-made and it kind of reverted. But I like his steadiness. I like that, he's gaining more and more confidence as a champion. He's talking a little too much trash for my taste in this fight and predicting a knockout. But I'm going to say he gets the decision.
AGBEKO wins this fight, and I think he is clearly among the premier elite bantamweights in the world. A lot of people talk about the guy out of Japan, Hozumi Hasegawa, who's outstanding. And Selmo Moreno, I think, is one of the most underrated boxers in the game. But I think AGBEKO has to be given credit here as part of that three-headed monster if he should beat Yanni PEREZ, who I believe is a top 5 or 6 118-pounder in the world. Gabriel, a young kid that has risen out of nowhere and become a prominent player at 135 is Antonio DeMarco, coming off some very big victories in 2009 on Showtime. He took out Kid Diamond, then he took out the African fighter on the undercard of Darchinyan against Joseph AGBEKO. I think DeMarco is one of these guys. He's very, very difficult to read. He looks skinny as a stick. He doesn't look like he has much muscle definition, but he has natural, wiry strength, and he is more durable than you think. I think DeMarco beats Alfaro in a pretty steady fight here.
Yeah, and I think if the first or the main event on this card is a very evenly matched. This almost feels like payback for DeMarco's last two fights, which were really tough against Kid Diamond and Andris Ajahu. And I thought that was a fight that he was possibly losing and was kind of showing, a lot of his flaws. He tends to get into firefights a little bit too much for his own good. He's very, his defense is pretty leaky. In this fight, Alfaro is kind of a get-back opponent. He's lost twice. He's been stopped before, and he lost, I think, 2 fights back. So I think DeMarco gets him out of there in the mid-rounds.
Where do you think DeMarco rates in the 135-pound class? Let's put it this way. If Juan Diaz is still a lightweight, which that's what I think he is, I think he's masquerading as a junior welterweight against Paulie Malignaggi, then you have Edwin Valero, who's kind of in exile with a lot of legal issues. You have Michael Katsidis, who seems to be in a car wreck every fight. You have guys like Vicente Escobedo, who just recently lost to Katsidis. Humberto Soto, we're not really sure if he's at 130 or 135.
Yeah.
The division has some names. I have a feeling that DeMarco fits in somewhere between 5 and 10 if you're doing a ranking system at 135.
Yeah, I would say, somewhere maybe around 3,
Wow, that high?
Yeah, I think so.
That high?
He's a solid guy, and, I think he needs a marquee name. I mean, at this point, he's fought, Ajahu was a tough guy that a lot of people wouldn't want to deal with. Kid Diamond is that kind of last final test before you become, a champion. Maybe somewhere between 3 and 5. Maybe he's a 4. Maybe that's a little bit high. But all these other guys, they're not fighting. Juan Diaz has moved up to junior welterweight. Like you said, Edwin Valero is missing in action. I think he's just going to be a case of, he's going to be a gym legend who never really happens.
Well, interesting sidelight to this. This is for the WBC interim lightweight title. The real title is held by Edwin Valero. So if DeMarco wins this fight as expected, Valero against DeMarco is a very interesting style matchup of two southpaws that couldn't be any more different. You have the big, strong, heavy, natural power puncher with almost no technique in Edwin Valero against a tall, lanky guy who likes to box a little bit, who's a little bit more of the technician and may have to use his boxing skills. I have to be honest with you, even with all the technical flaws of Edwin Valero, I just don't see DeMarco being able to hold off of Valero for 36 minutes.
No, I don't see it. He takes way too many punches, and like I said, he likes to get in firefights too much. And if you get in a firefight with Edwin Valero, you're absolutely outgunned. I mean, the guy's got anvils in both hands. So I would just wonder where the fight would be held.
Right, absolutely.
Maybe
well,
in South America somewhere.
As of right now, Edwin Valero, because of his legal issues, the DUI on the night of Pacquiao de La Hoya, from what I've been told by pretty good sources, he's not coming to America. This is not going to be Neil Diamond, and he may have to become a foreign fighter. Well, that's it for round number 1 of the next round. We come back, we review Adamek Golota. And welcome back to the next round. Steve Kim, Gabriel Montoya, talking boxing. Round number 2, we had the Lodz, Poland, where, yes, he was poleaxed at the Atlas Arena. Andrew Golota gets bludgeoned by Tomas Adamek. And, all right, let's get this out of the way. Let's fall on the sword here. And, Gabe, I think I need to apologize to you. I think I kind of led you astray. We were at that really bad restaurant, and I had the sampler. And I said, you know what, this stuff really isn't that bad. And then you tasted it. Then you ordered the whole plate. And it was absolutely awful. There was hair in the food, there was salmonella poisoning, and you had to be overnight hospitalized because you ordered the upset special.
I did.
I have to be honest, I thought it would be a tough fight, but here's the problem. Andrew Golota was more far gone than I think we imagined. Andrew Golota, and we're going to talk about Adamek, but here's the thing, Andrew Golota looked like he was underwater. He had no reflexes left at all.
Luckily for me, as the week wore on, we sat in that restaurant and the door to the kitchen opened, and I saw a real naked, sweaty, fat guy cooking my food, and so I actually changed it in my Friday mailbag, and I went with Adamek. I came to my senses. Yeah, he looked bad, man. Golota, the thing that really tripped me out was his skin doesn't seem like he could take a beating anymore.
Yeah.
He's starting to get old. First meaningful punch landed, and he was cut over his left eye, and it all just kind of went downhill from there. I mean, he looked like he had about 3 good rounds in him, or 3 mediocre rounds in him, and then he got really tired. So I don't really know what this says about Adamek as a heavyweight. I mean, it certainly shows that he's got some power.
Yeah.
He definitely brings,
He can bang.
Yeah, he can definitely bang up there. But, you know, he's not a big guy at heavyweight. He's 6'1.5". He came in at 214, and he's not exactly like Evander Holyfield, where he's got some speed and you know, some angles to him. So I kind of wonder where he goes from here.
So wait, by Monday you were on one side, by Friday you were on the other. I'm going to start calling you John Kerry with that flip-flop. Talk about playing both sides of the fence. But I'm with you. I like AGBEKO, one of the most exciting fighters in the world. He's a ticket draw on 2 continents. I don't understand why the networks keep eschewing this guy. I think do they have something against exciting fighters that actually sell tickets? That's something that's mystifying. But you're right. As a heavyweight, it's intriguing. You want to see more. Still think he's very, very unproven. I'm going to say this right now. I don't think he's going to beat the gargantuan heavyweights like the Klitschko's.
No.
Size, stature, reach, all that is wrong. But you know what? I would not mind seeing him against the likes of David Haye, David Tua, and Chris Arreola. Yeah. I think those are fun fights. Win, lose, or draw.
Absolutely action fights, you know. Maybe, you know, I think Eddie Chambers, though, a guy who's a smallish heavyweight, would give him a lot of trouble. You know, I think anybody with angles and movement is going to give him trouble. But, you know, here's the thing, is they've got, Main Events has a great thing going with him. You know, regardless of him being on TV or not, they're making a ton of money selling out the Prudential Center and, you know, maybe, you know, taking him even to Chicago. There was a big Polish fan base there. They're making a lot of money at cruiserweight with this guy. Why would you want to go and get him beat against you know, one of the heavyweights? I
think they're going to pick their spots. And Kathy Duva said, well, we have options. Options is another way of saying, you know what, if there's not an easy fight at heavyweight, we may have to go back down to cruiserweight. But, you know, then you got to deal with the fighter. Maybe Tomas Adamek himself believes, you know what, I am now a full-fledged heavyweight. Yeah. And he looks at that paycheck. Maybe being just a top 15 to 20 heavyweight is more lucrative than being the best cruiserweight by far. Because can you really think of a good cruiserweight fight right now that brings about memories of Holyfield Cowie? Does he have a dance partner at 200 pounds? Right now, he really does not.
No, I mean, Ola Afalabi, but that's not a big money fight. I mean, granted, I'd like to see Adamek locked in a steel cage with BJ Flores for, you know, about 15 rounds, but that's still not a big money fight. And you figure, even if you cashed out against one of the Klitschko brothers, that's equal to like 4 or 5 cruiserweight fights.
And Bernard Hopkins, Roy Jones, no matter who wins or loses, I don't think is going to step in the ring at this stage of their career with Tomas Adamek. But the thing I like about Adamek, though, he is who he is. He's a good, solid offensive fighter who's not hard to find, and he's going to make a fight. And you know what? Even at 214, hitting a much bigger guy, he could still kick with the right hand, though. I was actually pretty impressed with his power.
He looked, you know, like everything kind of came up with him. He can still move a bit. He looked good on his feet. He was slipping punches. He did kind of eat the right hand a few times from Galata and seemed a little bothered by it. But other than that, yeah, I mean, his power looked like it was there. What speed he has seemed like it came with him. He could make a little something happen.
In talking to Kathy Duva, she told me this before the fight, win or lose against Galata, he will be back at the Prudential Center, Tomas Adamek, February 6th. The timing is not right for the Cunningham rematch. Cunningham will now fight for that vacant IBF Cruiserweight title against Matt Godfrey. I expect the USS Cunningham to win that fight. If I am a network, I put aside some date between May and July, and I say, I want the rematch at the Prudential Center between Steve Cunningham and Tomas Adamek. It was one of the best fights of last year. For some reason, it didn't get done in 2009. But I think next year, should Cunningham come with the belt, Adamek is the ring cruiserweight champion, one of the biggest draws on the Eastern Seaboard. I think that fight is a must-have.
That's absolutely a must-have. I mean, he's been in some great fights. Adamek Briggs, you know, 1 and 2 were two of the best fights that nobody saw. You know, and then the Cunningham fight was a huge fight, you know, all action. I don't see why they wouldn't make that fight.
Absolutely. So good luck. Best of luck to Main Events and Tomas Adamek. We come back. We wrap it up with news and notes. And we wrap it up here with news and notes on the next round, brought to you by Everlast Steve, Kim, Gabriel Montoya. And folks, tell me if you've heard this story before. News and notes, Kelly Pavlik has pulled out of his December 5th date against Paul Williams with lingering issues with the staph infection. Gabe, there's some issues here with Kelly Pavlik. But putting that aside, the Kelly Pavlik staph infection has officially become boxing's version of Michael Jackson's autopsy. The story will not go away, except at least we know Michael Jackson is dead and buried. This thing just keeps coming up like a Michael Jackson Thriller zombie.
Oh, my goodness.
I think Kelly Pavlik, here's the problem I have with Pavlik now. If I'm a network or manager or a rival promoter, do you dare commit to a date for Kelly Pavlik until he can actually get into that ring and really show that he is healthy?
Absolutely not. You know, I think, you know, part of the deal would be, you know, I'm going to let my own doctor of my choosing check out your damn hand. You know, because we saw the pictures on, you know, they were released in a press release. It just looked like he needed some lotion. You know, it
well,
was. You know, I don't know.
Staph infections can be very dangerous.
They can be very dangerous.
I'm not going to come out here and question the validity of that injury. But there are a lot of issues there with Kelly Pavlik, a lot of whispers, a lot of rumors, a lot of innuendos.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go by those. But, you know, there's an old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think this year has been a complete monumental bust for the ghost who has disappeared, Gabe.
I've never seen a guy's stock, you know, fall this fast, other than maybe, you know, Kobe Bryant after Colorado. I mean, he went from being middleweight champ and top of the world, the Midwestern great hope, and now he's just missing in action. Yeah, if I'm a network, I don't go anywhere near him. And if I'm another promoter, I don't blame the Goosens, you know, for not wanting to touch this guy and reschedule a fight with Paul Williams. They've got a fighter of their own to deal with.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the fallout from this later on. And yes, if Kelly Pavlik was a stock, he would certainly be Bear Stearns or Enron. Moving on to the fight review. Thursday night, Tachi Palace, Edison Miranda blows out Francisco Sierra in 1. Then on Showbox, welterweight Freddie Hernandez with a 10-round decision over Damian Frias. And then featherweights in action, Victor Fonseca with a TKO in 9 over Al Seeger. Then Saturday in Puerto Rico, Kermit Citron stays busy, stopping Juliano Ramos in 5. Moving up top, I don't know what you can really gather from the level of competition, but I'll say this. Edison Miranda, to the day he dies, he can bang. He can bang with that right hand, and Francisco Sierra found out. If you haven't seen it, go on YouTube. This was a devastating knockout.
Oh, absolutely brutal. You know, the first angle, it almost seems like he caught him on the back of the head, but, you know, other angles show catches him right on the temple. And, you know, I think the thing that they wanted to see from him was that he boxed, you know, that he would go in there intelligent and not just bum rush the guy and blow him out. That's not what he was there for. And Edison, I thought he used the jab, not quite as much as I would like to see him, but he has a nice lead hook now that he's using. There's something that's new in his arsenal. And, you know, like you said, when he lowered the boom, man, it was over.
Offensively, he's still a guy you got to contend with because he can crack. I just don't know about the chin. And he'll tell you, hey, listen, I had problems making weight. That's fine. But when guys get knocked out more than once, there are some question marks, and those things become worse, a la Jermaine Taylor. It's like that post-concussion syndrome we talked about last week.
Yeah.
But we're going to see. But Edison Miranda makes for good TV, though. That's the thing I do like. You tune in when he fights.
Yeah, either he's going to get knocked out or he's going to knock you out. And it's not like he hasn't been down before. I mean, he's been down to Howard Eastman. He was down to Alan Green. And granted, these are actually guys that can crack. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he's got a China chin. I mean, he did stand up to Kelly Pavlik, sitting on those ropes, just getting pounded on for, well, I think it was like an 8-round fight.
8 rounds, yes.
Yeah. You know, so, you know, there's no shame in losing to big power punchers. But you got to wonder, as he's moving up in the super middleweight division, there's a lot of guys that can crack there. And I wonder if he can actually get to the elite level. But I think it's going to be 2 or 3 fights before we find out.
Absolutely. And I think Joe Goosen understands that this is a reclamation project. Gabe, taking a look at Showbox, Freddie Hernandez, a guy that I'm pretty familiar with. Here's what I think. I think he makes for good TV. He's a steady action fighter. He's fun. He's not hard to find. I don't see a world champion, but I do see a guy that eventually is going to be a pretty solid, steady, rugged contender, but maybe a guy not good enough to go all the way to the top. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm trying to think of the other welterweight guy out there, Delvin Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a younger, fresher Delvin Rodriguez. He doesn't quite have the pop that he does. He's got solid boxing skills, but there's nothing that really stands out about him that's particularly special that you'd say, oh, if you put him in with Andre Berto, he'd take that guy out. Maybe, I don't even think in 5 or 6 fights he's going to be seasoned enough that he's going to be that kind of elite type fighter.
Yeah, and taking a look at Victor Fonseca, Al Seeger, I guess one word describes this fight, and maybe Fonseca himself, awkward.
Oh, yeah. It
was, or that.
Yeah. I'd rather watch a certain radio show or listen to it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was kind of boring and mauling and
foul fest, clinching.
The ref had no control over the fight whatsoever. I thought Fonseca used his head as much as anything to get into the game, and I'm not talking about his intelligence. He just kind of kept coming forward and banging away. It wasn't very exciting to watch.
And looking at Al Seeger, who's been knocked out before by Daniel Ponce de Leon and absolutely stunned and shocked by Yuri Gamboa, just looking at Al Seeger after the fight and the way he reacted, I really have some questions. If you're his management, you're going to have to really sit down with this young man and decide what's in his best interest for the future of Al Seeger after prize fighting. He looked like a guy, you may have to pull him out of there for his own best interest.
Yeah, it was a brutal fight, especially for him. His face looked like he took a lot of headbutts. He started taking a lot of punches late, and it kind of just fell all apart all of a sudden. And yeah, he's a young guy, and I don't really know much about his background, but you hate to see a guy that age turn into an opponent.
Yeah. Absolutely. And wrapping it up here with tidbits, talking about the fallout from Kelly Pavlik giving the finger to everybody. December 5th, Paul Williams. Yeah, I said it, Gabe. December 5th, Paul Williams. He may be taking on Sergio Martinez, according to various sources. Also, the opening bout on that card, Joshua Clottey, Carlos Quintana, is now scratched because Goose and Tudor, they now have that show. And in its place, Chris Arreola will open up that December 5th show on HBO. Paul Williams, Sergio Martinez, and even Dan Goosen on the main event last week told me live. They're even talking about the WBO champion, Sergey Zizernzuk. I'm going to say this right now. I think both Dizzy Diz and Martinez, stylistically, southpaw, quick of foot, quick of hand, much better movement laterally. Stylistically, those are tougher fights than Kelly Pavlik for Paul Williams.
Absolutely. You go from a guy that has trouble with movement and angles, who kind of plods forward and you know, just has power basically on his side and maybe solid whiskers, to Sergio Martinez, who's going to run all over the ring. He's going to move in and out. He's got southpaw. You know, you just kind of have a flashback to Carlos Quintana when he outpointed Paul Williams. And you know, I think Sergey Gingerek, that's a fight that I would make, absolutely. You know, a lot of people are saying that he's ducking him. He actually has the real version of the WBO belt that Paul Williams has, so it would be kind of a weird unification type bout. But, you know, again, he's another troublesome guy. He's tall, rangy, he's a southpaw.
Can dart in and out. That's
and he's
key.
got power as well. Yeah. He's definitely a problem. I'd love to see either of those fights. Probably more Sergey Gingerek, though, because he's a little more of an action TV type of fighter, as opposed to Martinez, who, you know, could put you to sleep.
Gabe, I want to say this right now. Clottey and Quintana, they are not going to have Kelly Pavlik on their Christmas card list. And I feel bad for these guys. They didn't do anything wrong here. And I understand there's politics. I think that HBO definitely wants to punish Top Rank. I think they're very angry over the Kelly Pavlik situation. These guys were collateral damage. Carlos Quintana was supposed to be on that show, co-headlining with Cintron this week in Puerto Rico, pulled himself off that fight. And the worst thing is, according to some of the people I talked to, he found out by reading on the internet that he was given the hook. That's a terrible way to deal with fighters. I think you've got to give them a call and say, this is the situation. Maybe we can reschedule the fight. But this guy's got to earn a living. He's never complained. He's a good soldier. And same for Clottey. All they want to do is go out there and fight. Show these fighters a little bit of respect. And I do feel bad for these guys that they did nothing wrong, and yet they have no fight. They have no income the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Clottey's a guy that's been just sitting in the shadows of all the top-ranked, you know, welterweight stars for years. And to treat him like this is just plain wrong. You know, maybe we can get him, you know, they can get him a Latin Fury card or something, and you know, maybe get some quality on those cards, you know, for your money. But, you know, something. But that's just terrible.
Chris Arreola, you want to talk about a great early Christmas gift for Henry Ramirez, Al Heyman, and everyone else involved, that they didn't know when he was going to fight again. They were talking about late January, early February of next year. But when Clottey Quintana was given the hook and the Heyman Boxing Organization / Dan Goosen got that date, Chris Arreola steps up to the plate now in a stay-busy fight. This is the best thing that could happen to him in the short term and maybe the long term. Get him right back in the gym. Yeah,
right back in the gym. You know, keep him on weight. You know, don't let him balloon up too much. And to get his confidence back. You know, maybe get a win under his belt. You know, it's probably going to be a get-back type of opponent, showcase-type fight. But, you know, that's definitely what he needs at this point. And, yeah, absolutely, perfect Christmas gift.
Yeah, so instead of starting off at $295, now he'll just start off at like $275.
Yeah.
So if you look at it in relative comparison. All right, folks, once again, the main event with yours truly will be back Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, hopefully live for some of you. We're still working out technical issues. And, Gabe, this week I'm working on the inimitable, the unique, the ubiquitous Don King.
I can't wait.
Oh, I can't wait either. It'll be the easiest show I ever do. I just turn on the mic, ask Don what time it is, tell me how to build big men, and then the show will be over. But if you want to call in, we have the numbers. I can't give it to you now. We also have an email, k9kim@yahoo.com. So on behalf of Gabriel Montoya and the rest of Max Boxing, till the next round, goodbye, everybody.